Companies should hire an agency to do the job, and they should already have that job figured out. So they should know what their goal is. They should know what their resources are. They should know where they want to go. So it's so often that I come in to a spot and they're like, we just rebranded and we just redid our website and now we need marketing help. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, like, what was your goal?
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing, performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. Katie Smith, known as the queen of the customer journey, is a visionary marketer dedicated to transforming chaos and stagnation into strategic success. Her approach empowers businesses to connect with consumers, promote shared values, and be a force for good in today's world. And she's here today to tell us how to escape stagnation in ad agencies. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Let's just start off with stagnation. The reasons behind it have to be many. And a lot of agencies are feeling it in different ways. So I guess I just wanted to hear your definition of stagnation. And is it possible that stagnation can be mislabeled for other things?
So stagnation to me is when a company's been going along, doing what they've been doing, and all of a sudden growth stops, movement stops, creativity halts, grinding halt. It starts to feel like a slog. And then you look around and you're just not sure what the next path is. You might start throwing spaghetti against a wall. You might start researching all kinds of things, trying things without a plan to move forward. Stagnation can feel scary. And I think for agencies, especially, they need to not only recognize it in themselves, but also when they're dealing with stagnation with a client, because that's where you might start to lose them and it's really not your fault. So how can you work with your client to let them see that, hey, what we were doing got us to where we are now, but it's not going to get us to the next level. How can we work together to find that path forward? So it's kind of a double-edged sword when you're dealing with your own stagnation and also those of your clients.
And in your research and working with clients, what are the things that are leading to stagnation? Is it just sort of a rote, soulless? Like it's like I could imagine what it is, but tell me what you think like contributes to it.
Well, I mean, how much time do we have? But let's talk about some of the ones that can sneak up on you. So let's talk about the best kind of stagnation, which is the stagnation that means that you grew. You did what you were supposed to do. You walked on your path and you grew. And now those old techniques that you were using, maybe they're not the right techniques for the next level that you're at. It also could be that, times change, audiences change, marketing moves so fast. And it's not about, oh, I need to keep up with the trends so much as I need to understand what my customers are doing now and what they need right now. And has that changed? And it also can be just stagnation can be caused by overwork. So if you've just been kind of running hard, running at a wall, your team is just going, and you lose steam because there's not enough rest. There's not enough time for those creative juices to replenish. I think that's a really big one, especially with agencies when you've got tight deadlines. Your customers are expecting miracles, not really understanding what you do and what it actually takes to get the results that they want. So really burnout and stagnation go hand in hand.
You're saying something really interesting, which is this behind the scenes. Like maybe some of the stagnation is behind the scenes. It's like three otters in a trench coat. But what you're trying to tell people is it's magic. And do you think there is the stagnation might come from the conflicts of internal capabilities with external expectations?
Oh, yes. So I actually do a lot of that in my work as the fractional CMO. One of the things I say is I'm a translator. And so it's not just for, I work with a lot of agencies. I work sort of on the client side. I'm in the client's kind of with them. But my job is to help all of their contractors get the information that they need, understand really what the goals are, and then also translate to the client proper expectations, what the ad agency needs from the client in order to do things well. And I advocate for the client in the language that all the contractors need. So my goal really is to raise all ships. I want all our agencies to be having a good time, getting what they need, being able to creatively problem solve. And I want my clients to be understand actually what goes into market. I do a lot of education on the client side, which I think is so nice for agencies because it's hard to do that from their position. It's so hard to do it externally.
Yeah, new client, new vertical, new focus, new audience, new all that. And then you have 100 clients, so you have to be experts in all those places. It's going to be hard. So you're kind of like this concierge, communication concierge kind of thing. You're alighting on something that has been plaguing marketing, is that marketing knows marketing works, businesses know marketing works, but neither of them know how it works. And it's like, is this upsetting us? It should upset us. But I think if you don't have a champion or somebody that is trying to bridge the gaps, I think we're very focused on the gaps and we're not focused on the singular work that needs to happen to bridge it. I mean, there's so many platforms that could handle this, right, Katie? Isn't there so many messaging apps that could do what you do?
I mean, I like to think not.
Well, of course. But I think I'm saying everyone has those tools, but nobody has an expert that's willing to engage with those and make the tools and the processes line up. And you're doing the Lord's work. But what I want to ask is, when you're trying to identify or you come up against stagnation, how do you suggest, I guess at the client side and the agency side, how do you suggest the leadership identify and measure stagnation? Is it possible to measure this stuff before it becomes a problem?
Yes.
No, good.
100%.
Well, then
Actually,
good.
you should be. And I think that's a piece of it is sometimes people like marketing really isn't as like magical as we all might like to believe. It tells a story, it leaves a data trail. So if you have you set yourself up correctly to track what's happening, what customers are doing, what your key performance indicators are for that, you can pull in all kinds of data, but you need to have your goal, and you need to know what metrics show you if you're moving towards or away from that goal. And if you follow those metrics, I think unless you're like doing e-commerce, you don't have to look at your stats like daily,
Right.
but at least monthly, if not weekly, to understand and see the patterns. Because when you're measuring marketing, it's over time. You have to see what's happening over time. You can't just make a split decision on what you see at the end of Q1. That's too late. That's not nuanced enough. You need to be looking at how things are performing, and you can see it. You can see whatever your goal is. You can see if those metrics are performing, or if those start to stagnate, then you can catch it. You can say, hey, wow, something's not landing here, or what we were doing before isn't really working. We need to figure out why, and then we need to figure out a new approach. And you have to have a dual piece of it. The data tells a story, it gives you direction, but there's also a human element, right? You got to look out for your people. So what have they been going through? Are they having creative burnout? Um, it's not just a one-sided thing. You've really got to look at the whole picture. You got to look at your people, and you got to look at your stats.
People and stats. And at the end of the day, stats are people too. because some person did something that made that stat. So it's one of those weird levels of remove that you're like, well, what does the data say? Well, the data is people. So what do the people say? But then you also need a person to look at the data to find out what the people say. Oh boy. So this next question, people want sure bets in business, but we can't control all the forces that might impact an agency or a brand. So how do you think marketers should engage with and balance external market forces and internal managerial forces? And that's a lot going on in that question, so you can take it as you like, but
Sure. So the way that I first start these things, when I start working with someone, I look at us. I do a SWOT. I do a SWOT analysis. I look at strengths, weaknesses, which I think are internal inside the company, and then opportunities and threats, which are external. So I need to get that whole picture of what's going on so that we can identify, is there a weakness that we need to look at? What is a strength that we can leverage? And then what are opportunities that we haven't leveraged that, let's just take advantage of it because it's out there? And are there threats that we need to be watching? Do we need to use that to shift our focus? I mean, here's a great example. I've been talking with a B. They're B2B, B2C. They're a machine manufacturer.
mhm.
And during the pandemic, they came out and their main customer base was really B2C. They had this great following. They loved them, but during the pandemic, people were home. They had money to put into their hobbies because they weren't doing something else, right? So
Interesting.
now we're seeing a shift in that market change. And I really am asking them to focus on the B2B side because we are looking at potential recession. We're looking at inflation, making the dollars go, but we're also looking at these external things like the CHIPS Act. Things are off people wanting to reshore in manufacturing and this is an American made thing. So let's look
Mhm.
at those external sources and let's plan a shift before we are in trouble. Let's plan a little bit of a shift so that we can start going after where we think the market is going to go, right? And I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't done a SWOT, done some research, things like that.
Right. Well, and you're highlighting an instance where an ad agency with a bunch of clients might miss a couple of those external things, or in an interview with an account rep, or a POC, you might miss some of those internal things too. So it's refreshing to know that there's someone like you that can come in and say, you're busy over here, you're busy over here, let me try and find a way where I can marry these things. But like
Yeah.
bringing in the idea of like chips, the CHIPS Act, government regulation, like the flow of commerce, supply chains over the world, like those things are on the table when you come up with a plan. And if you're an ad agency and you're ignoring some of those things and you just make a cool challenger brand with probably a Snoop Dogg ad or something, you're like, oh, you missed the boat because you forgot the CHIPS Act.
Yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
you've got a great point here. You have a really good point about agencies. They don't have that kind of insight, So what
They
can they do?
can have it, but they don't do it. And why
Yeah.
don't they do it? Because they're just trying to secure the check or something.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the main issues that I see is everybody on both sides, they want to get to the meat part, the fun part.
Yeah.
Creating the ads,
Yeah.
creating the stuff
Yeah.
agencies are really good at what they do. They hire people who are specialists, and the specialists just want to go and do the work, right? So I think if agencies can, bring in, that's why I love working with agencies because they have all the smart people who can do all the work. So if they've got someone in development or somebody in strategy, and they should have someone in strategy who can
Right.
take the time to do that and then just build it into build it into your package, build it into your time, or hire me and I'll do it for you.
Oh,
But
there it is. The pitch is in. The pitch is in. Ding, ding, ding. No, I'm ringing the Trader Joe's bell right now. Ding, ding, ding. We got a pitch. No, I think it's more people are realizing the power of just having an expert hand on things. And I am big on the idea of having someone, a human, as a touchstone. Someone who can do work, do research, advocate in a very, like, I'm not playing favorites here. Those are the people
Mhm.
that you need. No business has succeeded with nothing but yes men. But
Right.
boy, it's nice to have yes men around, but they're
Yeah.
not going to tell you that your shit stinks. So you do it in a fun way. But I love this idea of marketing's problem maybe is that we want to do marketing so bad that we forget to do the strategic part. I think like an agency and a client, oh boy, they love, oh, is it purple? It's not royal purple. Like I'm thinking like more of a lavender or a lilac or something like, something that like speaks to the agency of our clients, maybe blue, maybe green. You know what? I like this tagline, but I don't like the font, the kerning, it's off. They just want to fight about that stuff and have fun.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you haven't done any strategic work that makes any of this wonderful work that you're doing. I'm not saying it isn't wonderful, but it's half cooked. And then 6 months down, they're going to be like, the marketing isn't working.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, there's a funny story. Because months before you hired someone to fix your marketing, you should have had a plan. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're all
And
here.
that is such a great point because it's, you companies should hire an agency to do the job and they should already have that job figured out. So they should know what their goal is. They should know what their resources are. They should know where they want to go. So it's so often that I come in to a spot and they're like, we just rebranded and we just redid our website and now we need marketing help. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, like, what was your goal?
Well, I mean, the new CMO is here, so they have to make their stamp. So it's like, hey, we got rid of all that old stuff that wasn't working. Now we got new stuff. And
Yeah,
the
and then they're
audience
like,
doesn't know
"Our"
who the fuck you are.
yeah,
They're
"Our
like,
traffic is down," and they don't know why.
well, and then you changed your logo 7 ways from Sunday. All those things. It's such a good point. Like marketing's problems could be marketing. And I think it feels weird to say that. But you're so eager to get to it that you're not getting to it in the right way. And that's why I love this idea of the stagnation, which is after things have gone poorly. What we're trying to tell you is to get your eye on the stagnation before it happens. And then maybe the best way to do that is to have a super tight brief where agencies could say, I know you want a website. I know you want that. What else? What are your goals? Where is this headed? And I think maybe a lot of agencies, or, not a lot, but there are agencies out there that aren't willing to have that conversation. When you really kind of got to say, slow down. Let's talk about this. This leads me into the next question. Story time. Can you give us an example of like when you came in, worked with a client, and you just turned the stagnation into a Cinderella story? And then also, do you have any stagnant, swampy horror stories?
Oh boy. Let's see. Let's start with the interesting one first. Um, so I started working with Ohio Children's Alliance. They're working with the state to increase the number of foster parents who are willing to take in children. And they had launched a campaign at the beginning of 2019. So or it was maybe the middle. So it really, before 2020 hit, it had no opportunity to get off the ground. So they were working with OCA to get this going. Meanwhile, the whole world has changed. People have changed. We don't know what what is motivating to people anymore, anything like that. So I came in to help them, and we needed we're working with the government, right? So they have
Mhm.
certain processes and procedures
Oh,
that
yeah.
we need to go with. But they
Right.
also needed this. Was an emergency. We needed this campaign to work.
Mm.
So we kind of went through a couple of different agencies who the style just wasn't right. There was nothing wrong with the agency, but we needed them to come at a different approach. And my client wouldn't have known that. They would have
Mm.
kept trying to force things. And I was like, this isn't working. We need
Mhm.
somebody who can approach things differently.
Mhm.
So we ended terms with one, and then we tried another who they were really wonderful. They helped us along, but they just didn't have the robustness that we needed. So
Mm.
this is like Goldilocks, So finally I said, listen, I want to bring in a team that I think will be great. They're problem solvers. They come in. So we brought them into our team, this agency, and it was the right fit.
Mm.
So we were able to work through with the government, with everybody to get these campaigns going. And we increased traffic, we increased form fills, the number
Mhm.
of people who were applying, asking to be foster parents, and really getting the word out there about this. Now, it's still ongoing, it's still a crisis, and we are still working towards that. But we use so much data to figure out where we need to go, and we just do a lot of listening, and
Mm.
that's really been helping. That's something that I've really brought in. But also I do a lot of interpreting with this, with between the agency, between team. Actually, I don't have to do it so much anymore because everybody's speaking a similar language now.
Mm.
The agency understands so much about um what OCA is doing. OCA really understands what marketing is now. So
Mm.
I actually don't have to do quite as much as I did in the future. Things are set up, and now we can just do I can do high level strategy, which I love.
Well, and
But
and you set up the processes so if stagnation comes again, which it shall,
mhm,
you're gonna be able to pivot faster
yeah.
because of the things that you set up, which is amazing. And I mean, COVID, talk about the stagnator. I mean, that came in, and we were convinced the world had changed, and then 4 years later, I'm sort of like you're like, what's the same? And that's
Yeah.
sad because I don't think we quite recognized how deeply impactful that whole thing was on us, and emotionally, like existentially, all those things. But marketers were going nuts. They were like, the world's changing. Everybody's going to be living inside a pod somewhere, and we're going to have to find ways to ingest smells from them. And you're just like, I'm sorry, what? Can you just stay making bread? Um, but I remember getting really weirded out. I was like, oh, the metaverse, like that might be a thing, like
Yeah.
germ free spots to play events and do those things. And I was working at a marketing agency at the time, and I was like, I think we should really like look into this. And they were like, and I remember feeling at the time like they're wrong, like the world's changing. And then in a couple months, I was like, oh, it's not.
Yeah.
Um, so, but the response to that could either, I'm pretty sure it sealed some tombs and unsealed some blooms.
Mhm.
People who maybe got it wrong, got it right, or decided to pivot too hard, or just decide to ride through. I mean, that's why I think stagnation is hard, because let's just get through it. We're
Mhm.
doing the hard work. I mean, it could have related to a marriage, sometimes you think you're doing the hard work to keep the relationship together, but it's actually not how relationships should be.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody could raise their hand on that one. You're like, I thought I was in a great relationship. Turns out I was doing really horrible things. And you're like, tell me more. Therapists are just licking their chops at this episode. But I think a lot of people are like, I'm doing the hard work. It's frustrating because it's work.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people?
Well, I'd say work should be a little bit fun.
Just a little bit.
I think it should be a lot. I try to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I think that is that sunk cost fallacy, I think, is a big leader to that, to staying stuck in stagnation. Listen, everyone's going to get stagnant. Everybody. You
Yep.
can't avoid it.
No.
It's how long are you going to stay kind of pushing on ahead, ignoring the cues? How long are you going to stay there?
Right.
I think that's the question. So
Yeah.
that sunk cost fallacy, we've been doing this for so long. How can we stop doing it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really getting the blinders on, being afraid to step back and kind of get that big picture. That is really scary.
Let me. So then well, and then we'll get to the last two questions, and then I'll release you back into the wild. But stagnation with technology. Do you see that certain platforms or tools or technology things that are here to bust up stagnation actually created?
Yes. I think for a couple of things. I mean, right? So creative stagnation, if you're a creative person, you can't just keep doing the same thing, rote thing. You can't write the same copy all day, every day long.
Yeah.
You can't, without replenishing, getting a new perspective, right? You can't design the same thing day after day,
So true.
or it wears you down.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you can't have a unique thought. So, I think that's why it's really important for agencies to invest in education of their people. So get them out to a conference, let them take a class. Not only are they going to learn something valuable, but they're going to come across new ideas, new ways of thinking. It's going to spark joy for them. It's going to help stop that burnout. Make sure they're going on vacation, like unplugging a little bit. So that you can bring that in.
I'm sorry, I'm raising my hand. The audience can't see me, but I'm raising my hand. Yes, Jake. Okay, host of the show. Would you like to ask a question? No, you. I'm embarrassing, but I'm not. Shit, fuck. What were you gonna say? You said something amazing, and I had something amazing. What did you just say, Katie?
I was talking about making sure your people go on vacation, they get outside their box, they meet new people.
Oh, yes, that's it. Oh, here's my question. So education is so important, and I go to the webinar, go to the conference, get the white paper. Now, how do you help people take what they've learned and use it? Because I'm starting to see that that's maybe the biggest gap in marketing. Is there are so many white papers, so many templates, so much good advice. There's people like Katie out here that could tell you how to do it, but we're not doing it. All of this education, all this, information, all of this stunningly awesome expert advice is being ignored. What the hell, Katie?
So one of the reasons that I work for myself is because I was hired with all my expertise to do a job, and then no one would listen to me.
That is crazy. All the marketers out here are saying, what? That's not right.
Because I wasn't in the C-suite, and I realized that I needed to be in the C-suite in order to enact the change that I wanted to make.
Yes.
So I think listening to people when they come back from a conference, asking them, "Hey, what did you learn, and what do you want to implement?" You know, one of the best bosses I have ever had in my life. She was huge on education. She'd say she knew I had the skills, and she'd say, "What do you want to do?" And I'd say, "Well, I think we should do this." And she'd say, "Okay, what do you need to do it?" So, and then she would get me what I needed to do it, and we would do it. We would do it in a controlled experiment way. It's not just like throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Katie's out here wild.
No, I had my reasons. I had a hypothesis. We backed it with data. We tracked, and I would learn what I needed to learn. And I think if more people could do that, empower your people, then that's like raising all ships. They're not going to get stagnant. They're going to come up with really cool ideas. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. And then your clients are going to be successful. You're going to be successful. It's all about investing in your people, keeping And you're creatives. Come
And
on.
I know. I mean, so it's also investing inquiry. Like, you ask them what they learned. I mean, this is how you do it with kids. Tell me what you learned at school today. And then we naturally find a way to fit that into their life. But we don't do that with a lot of the marketing stuff unless you have a good parent/manager. And I'll tell you right now, I mean, my boss right now is one of the best marketers, just because she has this same approach. Is like, well, why do you think this is good? Tell me what you think this means. Whereas before, it's like, if you have an idea, people are like, let's go. And you're like, oh no, should we have talked about it more? And they're like, no, act, go, kill, execute. Whereas any of the best bosses are like, hey, explain this to me really quick. Why do you like this? What is it that you think is going to work? How do you think you can make it work? What else is going on? And you're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about none of that. And you're like, well, idea man. But inquiry, just being curious about your people, asking them questions. How are you doing? What do you need help with? Those kind of things. Those small things, if we all did it, I bet we would see in 2 or 3 months the world being a much better place. But I think a lot of people are like, I trust what you're doing, which means I don't give a what you're doing. I trust you know what you're doing. They ain't gonna look. They don't want to look. It's like the sausage owner of the sausage factory is like, good work here. And they're like, do you know what's in this? And they're like, no, I don't. I'm going to lunch. So no, sorry, sausage tangent aside, you've given us so many amazing things to think about, how we can kind of break up our thinking, bridge communication, gaps that we have, really understand folks, separating internal from external forces. The SWOT thing was very smart. So people are lucky to have you. My question is, all of this amazing thing, all of this episode, wonderful. What's your one piece of advice when it comes to escaping stagnation?
It's to get outside of your box and listen. You just got to listen. Listen to your customers, listen to your people. Just listen.
God, I can't say anything after that because I was listening so well. You know what I mean? No, Katie, amazing stuff. I mean, this is an absolute masterclass. And stagnation is a seemingly third order kind of problem, but it comes from first order effects. And I think the way you've explained it is so wonderful. And the fact that it comes back to humans listening and being curious about things and working together, that's marketing. So if people want to learn more and connect with you online, Katie, how can they do that?
So my website is followthewildpath.com. So it's pretty fun. I appreciate your background making me feel at home.
Audience, I have a nature background with animated deer.
Yes. But I really like to hang out on LinkedIn. So you can find me there, and please start a conversation, ask questions. I love talk about marketing. And because my name is Katie Smith, you need to search Katie Smith Wild Path Consulting, because there are like millions of us.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cheese or chocolate?
Cheese.
Okay. Willy Wonka or Wile E. Coyote?
Willy Wonka.
Okay. Vacuum or Roomba?
Roomba.
Really? Oh, you paused there. Are you, what? Is the Roomba in the room with you?
I don't have one, but
But you just like it as a thing?
I dog sit sometimes for fun.
Different story.
And they have Roombas, and I love it. I always start the Roomba.
You just like to see it putz around and just do its thing.
It's so good. It's just
delightful.
like takes care of things. And
What a delightful little thing.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Team Roomba, you may have just moved me. Pancakes or waffles?
Ooh, waffles.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Do you feel like people don't agree with you, and that's why you said it? Ooh, waffles.
No, I said it because I was excited about waffles.
Ooh, waffles. So good. Wait, a big one, the big Belgian.
Yeah.
That
But
any waffle.
any waffles because the little divots capture all the toppings.
Talk about science. I mean, I don't think we've made better technology since the waffle iron. I don't.
Right? I might agree with you.
Oh, sure, pants. Yeah, those are great. Pff, whatever. Anyway, the first person who invented pants was laughed at. I bet they were like, okay. Anyway, not important, but historically accurate. Scrolling or strolling?
Strolling.
Natch. You seem like that. You're on the wild side.
Yes.
And finally, Harry Potter or Grace Potter?
I went to college with Grace Potter.
Audience, I just fell off my chair. That's amazing. You went to Hogwarts? I messed that up. On purpose, I messed it up. So was Grace Potter cool or was she like annoying?
She was great. She was really cool.
I figured.
We had this little, like, one of our theme cottages was a music cottage, and she would play all the time.
How
She
cool.
was really nice.
Oh, I love themed cottage. Just know that Katie Smith is coming from cottage life.
I lived in the outing club house.
Oh, yeah, you did. And you still do, don't you? But
I sure do.
But you got a seat at the C-suite table, right?
Yep.
Yeah, tell him, Katie.
What Gets Measured is a NinjaCat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.